Welcome, gamers, to this week's episode of Last Call Gaming. We're at episode 201. Today is August 12th. My name is Craig Perales. Joining me, Mandrew Montemare, my friend. How are you on this fine Monday today?
Monday's the worst day of the week ever, so I don't hate when we do stuff on Monday, but I just hate I'm Garfield, bro. I hate Mondays in general. It's the worst day of the week.
Are you a lasagna man?
I love lasagna.
You a nice plate of lasagna when you get home? That'll
I hate when they
do...
I hate the extra meat lasagna, though. I'm all about the extra cheese lasagna.
Oh, yeah, you really can't go wrong with a fucking... What is lasagna what? Normally like a 3-tiered pasta dish?
I don't know, because I don't ever go anywhere that, like, serves lasagna that much, but,
Yeah, usually it's best when it's, like, homemade, right? I don't think I go to, like, a pizza place and go, oh, give me a slice of the lasagna.
I don't even get, like, homemade. I get, like, the one from the Stofers.
Oh, that's not bad. I don't think I've done, like, the one in the tin foil?
Yeah, it comes in, like, the little thing. I mean, it's pretty good.
Nice. So, if you guys are pasta people out there, let us know your favorite dish. But, guys, thank you for joining us today. If you're watching the YouTube version of the show, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Do it right now. If you guys are interested in following us on our social media, our Linktree link is in the description. And if you guys are listening to the audio-only version of this podcast, you guys can find us on your podcast platform of choice. So, before we get going, guys, we'd like to do What Are You Up To? When Andrew and I take a second, talk about what we've been playing, what we've been watching. So actually, I'll start this one off because, this thing is running smoother these days. So as far as what I've been watching, I just finished the newest season of Dragon Prince, which is on season 6. It's on Netflix. It aired on July 26th. It's 9 episodes long. It's a pretty long-running show for Netflix because, generally speaking, Netflix shows get about 3 seasons and then they get axed. You look at things like Arcane that didn't even make it past its first season. This actually it's on its 6th season and it's going to get a final 7th season, which will be hopefully coming out next year sometime. If you guys aren't familiar with it, in the magical land of Zadia, magic comes from 6 primal sources: the sun, moon, stars, sky, earth, and ocean. When humans create a 7th kind of magic, dark magic, they start capturing and harvesting the unique magical creatures they need as ingredients, which sparks a war between Zadia and the human kingdoms. 3 kids from the opposite sides of the conflict, 2 princes and an elven assassin sent to kill them, discover a secret that could change everything and decide to join forces and go on an epic journey. That trek could be their only hope of ending the war and restoring peace to both worlds. So it's, if you like Avatar: Last Airbender, it kind of has those kind of vibes. The guy that does Sokka is the guy that plays Callum in this. The animation, we've talked about it before because the show is fairly old. It originally came out in 2018, and that was season 1, and then they went 2019, 2020. They had a 3-year hiatus, and then the show came back for seasons 4, 5, and 6 under the new title, The Dragon Prince Mystery of Erebos. So if you do see that on Netflix and you don't see The Dragon Prince, it is all the same thing. You guys can check it out. It's an awesome story. It's got high fantasy, elves, magic, all kinds of cool stuff. It does mature, which I think is always kind of cool. So during a certain point, 2 years go by, so the kids actually kind of grow up, which I think is always kind of cool when you kind of see anime or kind of anime inspired things. It's not like watching Rugrats or Doug, and there's 4 Christmas specials.
Yeah.
But yet these kids are always 1 years old. So if you didn't know it was out, check it out. If you're not into the beginning of it, because it is a little kiddish, as it gets later on, it does get a lot more mature. The blood magic, it gets kind of dark. It really dives into this war. There's death in this show between certain characters. So it's a really fun and unique show, and you got plenty of episodes to watch now. As far as what I've been playing, I wasn't feeling that well over the last few days, so I wasn't playing anything big. I wasn't trying to listen to big cutscenes, and I was just kind of looking around on PlayStation Plus, and this game, Cat Quest, kept popping up in my feed, recommended, and it looked and sounded kind of dumb, and then I watched the trailer. And it's actually kind of bright and colorful. The premise is dumb. I don't really know much about what was going on with the story. I know the first one is your sister gets kidnapped and you've got to try to find this mage and you got to battle these dragons. Cat Quest 2, you actually get to play between a dog and a cat, and there's this war happening between their 2 lands. But I was just mainly using it as a podcast game, and it's pretty fun actually. It's got this top world map that you actually get to go to these different places. You get to collect different armor. It's got a cool magic system that you can get like fire, lightning, healing spells, shield spells, and you can attach them to like L1, R1, L2, R2. You keep going into these different dungeons and like clearing them out. There's a bunch of different little side quests. I'd argue that it's a very simple, point blank kind of game. But if you've got younger kids that you maybe want to have them experiment with an RPG game, and I would say this is a really good game. Like I'd recommend, like if Grayson was trying to get into an RPG that's not overwhelming, like it's a good game to start with. It's just go to Dungeon A, clear it out, go collect your reward. You can kind of build different characters. So like there's 4 different stats. It's just health, attacking, magic, and then your shield. And then you can kind of build up with different armor what you want to do. Number 2, since you can now switch between 2 different characters, it's kind of cooler when you fight bosses because you kind of have 2 players. You can kind of use one up, and then when he's dying, you can switch over to the other one. And I made one tonight. And number 2, they introduced range magic, so you can start kind of shooting from afar. It also introduces co-op, so if you do want to play it with somebody, you can. And they were free on the subscription pass, so I didn't buy anything for them. But number 3 just came out. I believe it was on the 8th of this month, and it's only like $18. So I did end up buying that because I did kind of want to complete the trilogy. And the first 2 are kind of medieval fantasy. The third one is actually like a pirate themed one. So now you get on a ship, you get to cruise around in the ocean. It's a lot of fun for a very kind of kiddie type, pun intended, for a very kiddie type game. There's really not much to it. You can beat them both like in less than 8 hours, if that. So they're quick, they're fast. I've had fun with them, and for $18 that I put into it, you get to knock out this whole trilogy. So that's what I've been playing, and so far, and if you guys are watching on YouTube, I'm sure you're seeing the thing. It's bright, it's colorful, and it's actually pretty fun. It's like you got dodge mechanics. They like when enemies are about to do their attacks, you can kind of see like their warning AoE red circle building up, so you can dodge it. So there's a little bit of skill involved, but again, it's not too hard of a game. It was something you or maybe your kids are interested in playing. I would say check it out. Andrew, my friend, what have you been up to?
I actually just finished Kunitsugami finally. It seemed like it was a little long kind of on the back half for some of the levels because you're kind of doing some of the general same like kind of tower thing throughout all the way through, but it still was a really, really good game. I really liked it a lot. It actually did get a little challenging in the back half, especially like the final boss. I kept trying all these different things. I'm like, dude, none of this is just working. Like, I just don't get it. I have these super powerful guys that I feel like just aren't doing anything. And I think last week I talked about them, maybe not too much, but I was talking shit on your initial guys that you get, the woodcutters. I was like, don't use those. Just use the bowman all the way through. I read some dude online in like a random Reddit post just said go all woodcutter and just go all out. And sure enough, as soon as I did that, I beat it like the first try. So
nice.
Use those woodcutters. I lied about them.
You said it's a free respec though, right? It's not resources to do it. You can just redo them.
At first, it costs whatever to use them to where you can't respec. But I think about like halfway kind of through the game, you do get the option to respec. Oh, cool. So you could respec anything. You could respec yourself, and so take all the points out of yourself and put them back into any of these guys. Or if you were experimenting with guys and maybe didn't like them, you could take it off of them and then put it over to everybody else. So there's really no penalty for playing around with it. So I pretty much for the game, if I had any advice for you, I would say on the normal levels, if you're just kind of going from A to B, I would use the archers because they have such a huge range and they're really, really good. And then for the bosses, going back, especially if you're doing the time trials and stuff, I would just do the woodcutters because those do just mob on them like crazy. I think my only complaint, and this will be a late game spoiler, but I guess it's not really that big a spoiler, is before you do the final boss, you're kind of like ascending the mountain again, that you have to do like a boss rush mode. Now, it doesn't tell you this, but for those of you out there who don't know, maybe you're putting it off because of that, is every time you beat a boss, it does autosave in between, even though it doesn't tell you. So if you do end up getting tired or you don't want to do it, it'll pick you back up where you left off, provided you don't leave the level. But I was like, dude, this is kind of annoying, especially too, because one of the final bosses, he's not even really hard. It's just you're in a big square kind of arena that is built like a little town. It's not too big. Of course, you still have to protect the priestess, but while you're attacking this guy, he's summoning people that are going after her, which isn't the big deal, but he's running from you the whole time you're fighting him, and it's just so annoying because your guy's not insanely fast, so just chasing him down is just the most annoying thing. So having to fight that dude, because I think I did the boss rush right after that, so having to do that, then beat the other bosses, first try them, and then have to fight that guy again, I'm like, bro, you're so annoying.
That's funny.
And then I haven't decided, I haven't decided my next game yet. It comes out tonight, I think, at 9, or it'll be on the pass tomorrow. But I'm going to do the Mafia Definitive and give that a go, because that always looked really good.
I think we both had our eye on it. I think I tried to can you already install? I don't know if I uninstalled.
I tried it, wouldn't let me.
Okay, yeah, because I got my eye on that too, and I don't remember that game being big either back in the day. Or should be a quick game though.
I've heard lots of good things about it. I think you can beat it in like 12 hours or so. But we've always both talked about it because we both kind of like, obviously, those kind of movies, that kind of setting. So 1, 2, and 3, I believe, are all coming to the Game Pass. So give those a shot if you're looking for them. As far as watching anything, I just finished. I didn't get when it came out, but it came out this year. I think it came out at the start of June. It's called Who Killed WCW. Now, I'm not like a crazy like wrestling fan, especially like modern wrestling. I don't follow like any of that stuff. But when I was a kid, I was super huge, mostly into like the Raw is War and then the Attitude Era. And then a little bit after that's kind of where like I dropped off. But I was like aware of what else was going on. I wasn't really like a big WCW person, even though I liked a lot of those guys. I saw a lot of those guys when they came over to WWE. So going back and watching like the whole like TV Wars thing, it was really good. Now we were supposed to record, I think, Sunday, but you weren't feeling good. So I was like, all right, I'll just take the first episode the night before. So I watched it fresh. I ended up staying up till 4 in the morning watching all 4 of them because it was that good.
Nice.
So they're only 44 minutes long. I feel like you're just cruising through because it's that good. And so it goes into like not just as far as like financial decisions, the whole like Ted Turner and then the AOL thing, and then taking away as far as, because I was like, I don't think we should do 2 shows a week because we're creating one really, really good one. Now that's going to be detrimental because you're kind of pulling resources and have to come up with a whole second thing. And this was to compete with, because Raw is now coming out with SmackDown, and how he had to figure all that stuff out, and just all the different behind the scenes stuff. It's a really, really good watch. It's super interesting if you're even remotely at all interested in any of that stuff. And it's all on Hulu if you have like the live, or I found them all on like if you have any sort of internet browser like on your TV, they're all on like Daily Motion for free.
Oh, sweet.
So they were insanely good. I highly recommend watching it.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch over. I mean, there's been so many different variations of. So it's like a docu-series told by the creator of whoever's making it, or if it's like interviews with Eric Bischoff.
Actually, this thing
and things like that.
The only thing I didn't like about it, because I don't feel like it lends anything to it, is this is made by the Rock's production service. And so he's in it a little bit, and I'm like, I don't really get why you're talking about anything that you had nothing to do with, except for the couple seconds like, oh, I looked up to Hulk Hogan. And when I'm joining, Hulk Hogan's the god, and Ric Flair's the god, and you want to be those guys, that's fine. But then when he's kind of talking about some of the other stuff, and for whatever reason, not a personal attack, he looks like terrible in this. But no, it's actually them. They have lots of footage. They even have unseen footage because they filmed like the final 2 days of Nitro, and I forget what the other show's called. It's like Thunder something.
Yeah, Thunder was their Thursday show.
Oh yeah, Thunder, and so no, it's lots of behind the scenes stuff, lots of interviews with modern people. It's like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Kevin Nash is in it. Vince Russo, like the writer. They even have lots of like behind, like people who were at the executive level, assistants, and they're kind of just gauging everybody's opinion, because a lot of people point the fingers in different ways. Like, it's Eric Bischoff, it's Ted Turner, it's Vince Russo for the poor writing and making it more in the later days like a Jerry Springer show than like what you have with your traditional wrestling storylines, to where it's like going off the fucking deep end with like assaulting people with hot dogs, just like stupid shit. So either way, it was a really good watch to get a lot of different perspectives from.
Excellent, perfect, man.
You guys would love it for sure.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of it, so I don't know how much more I'd learn out of it outside of that particular interview. But yeah, you said how many episodes?
4. But it's all brand new stuff where it's interviewing. So it's not like they're pulling old interviews from people. It's all brand new stuff.
Nice, and I can't wait to check that out. So, guys, with that down and out of the way, leave us down below in the comment section or wherever you can find it, what you've been watching, what you've been playing, and let us know. So, with that, guys, we'll move into our main story, and that is that the Borderlands movie has finally came out, and it is not doing so good. Borderlands, it's a very odd type of thing. Borderlands was a movie that was announced, and a lot of people maybe forget this, was announced 9 years ago that they were going to start doing this thing. 5 years ago is probably when it started getting a little more traction. That is when Eli Roth kind of came on. So I think a lot of people forgot about this movie. I definitely did, because I remember I was just kind of, it was right after Deadpool, and I remember going on the Fandango, and I was just kind of saying, oh, what else is out this week? And it's like, oh, Thursday, Borderlands. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this movie was even on its way. So, you know, on paper, it looked like it was going to do well. Big name cast. It's a fairly big known IP in the gaming industry. You've got Eli Roth as the director, but
that surprises me the most.
Yes, exactly, and it didn't do much of anything. It debuted when it first came out with a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Since then, it has gone up. I believe now it's at 9%. On the first day, I believe when it came out, its box office was only 1.8 million at the end of its weekend run, which was yesterday. It did go up. We'll get into that. And like I said, I almost went to actually go see it, but I didn't. And only because I wasn't feeling well over the last few days. So I was just like, nah, I'm not gonna go see it. And then me and Andrew started reading all these reviews. I was like, well, thank God I did it. But there's something in me that kind of wants to know how bad it is, because from what I'm reading, it's not the worst movie, right? There's things that are out there that are worse, like Madame Web is a more, from subjective point of view, but from a critic's point of view, there's worse movies. It just, this thing flopped harder than any of those movies, because at least with Madame Web, you have a type of Spider-Man backing it up. Even most gamers, if you don't like Borderlands, you know, what's dragging you to go see this thing? And I think this thing was trying to ride a lot of hype of Deadpool just got done, right? Let's go right back, and then the next movie, let's go see Borderlands with its zany kind of thing. So let me read this, and we'll kind of break it down, and then we'll go on from there. There's some screen rant. It's got a pretty big article. If you guys want to read the whole thing, the link will be in the description. It says, at the moment, Borderlands critical and audience reviews are quite bad. On Rotten Tomatoes, the action movie has earned 10% from critics and a 51% from audiences. From the critics' perspective, Borderlands failed in many different areas. However, one of the main complaints was the story. According to the reviewers, Borderlands not only feels generic, but it also lacks any character development or big plot moments. There is no reason for an audience member to stay invested beyond loving the original video game. Additionally, critics felt that the Borderlands had no definitive tone, making it feel messy and confusing. The audience reaction was not much better, while viewers also picked up on Borderlands' stagnant plot. They were especially peeved with the movie's casting. Although the A-list actors seemingly tried their best to make the story come to life, audience felt that most of the cast did not fit their characters. Some even felt that on screen the actors seemed as if they didn't want to be there. On the other hand, some reviewers enjoyed Borderlands for its unique visuals and action sequences. However, for the most part, it has gone down as a poor representation of the beloved game. So, yeah, you got to understand that there's probably a couple different things that went into this thing to make it flop, or at least not do as well as I think they imagined it to do. So I kind of had a couple things that I wanted to point out. Unless there's anything off of this that you want to touch on, or you just want to hit it point by point?
No, we can take it one
Okay, so first of all, I would say this movie didn't look that good. Now, there's on the best scale, I think most people would have watched these trailers and said, oh, that looks okay. And then on the other scale, it looks terrible, right? There's really nothing more than saying, oh, it looks okay. So when you look at the trailer and you look at the cast, the trailer, because I remember when Andrew were watching it, I think the trailer came out a few months ago or something, we're like, I can't tell if this is, like, what is this supposed to be? A lot of CGI. I mean, a lot of people are comparing it to, like, a Walmart version of Guardians of the Galaxy is what the trailer tempo was giving off. And the weird thing was with Borderlands, there's not much story that you really need to follow. That was kind of the weird thing with this, is that Borderlands is generally based on its wackiness, its characters, and its gunfight. I don't care if you're going to take a different story and redo it, but make that story seem clear, because watching the trailer, I'm like, okay, what's happening? Where's this budget going? Like, so when we were watching it, I think Andrew was kind of more on the, this looks bad, and I was on the more of the fence of being like, it looks okay, but like, the trailer was terrible. I mean, with bad marketing, it's like, that already shot yourself in the foot.
And I'll say, I don't remember having like any hype behind this, and then even after seeing the trailer and then just seeing more and more, I'm like, these just don't look good. I don't really understand like what it's trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that was a big problem for it.
So I agree. Like, out of this, all you again, this isn't like with Deadpool where your critics are expecting this 10 out of 10 story, whatever, and they gave it kind of okay numbers, and then fans went and saw it, and people like me, Craig, and people who love that stuff gave it 10 out of 10 and got exactly what we wanted. Or same with like Mario. Like, from what we're hearing from both sides, is it's just all around bad, and I don't understand how when you had just such an open world, Vault Hunters, that's all you really had to make a story about.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate. The second thing I would say that's the biggest problem with it, which is why it's now considered one of the biggest flops ever, is this budget. This just goes to show that these movies do not need these budgets on something that's not tried and true. Wait for the next movie because this thing I think was supposed to be a franchise. I don't know how the movie ends. I don't know if it's on a cliffhanger or set up for a number 2, but this movie has between $100 and $115 million budget, and that's really big. So generally speaking, when you have a movie that's around that, you've got you want to make about a third of that back, so that in most cases you could probably be okay and break even. So with this thing sitting at a $115 million budget, and it's got a really low marketing budget too. It was like $30 million. Then its opening weekend, you're going to need about $50 million to hit that number of being like, oh, we might break even if word of mouth keeps going. This thing, like I said, 1.58 on the opening day, $8.8 million for its final opening weekend when it needed close to 50, which is like, dude, you are toast. I think Lionsgate, I'll have to look it up again, as the guys making this, it's like, you guys aren't anywhere close, and I think worldwide, it came out to around $16 million, so it's like, with that being said, where did this budget go? When you look at this thing, especially the trailer, a lot of people are saying CGI is all over the place, and then if the other thing's going to be based on this cast, and we'll get into the cast in a second, it's like, this is the reason why, on a new IP that you're making a movie out of, you do not need to be spending these budget of $150 million, because then, unfortunately, you get something like this. And I can't blame it all on who they were paying on all that stuff, because one of the other things, too, is, like, just bad writing and bad placement of the story. But, I mean, this movie had no right warranting $150 million budget. It's like, stick with 50 and work your way up.
That's what I was going to say, too. I was like, I just don't really understand who looked at this, was like, all right, because it's not like Borderlands by no means is like dead, but it's not thriving.
Yeah,
it's not.
The last game came out in 2019.
Yeah, it's not hot on people's mouths. Like, it's not Final Fantasy. It's not God of War. It's not a hot IP. So who's like, oh, all right, well, let's put this IP out there, and it's gonna shoot over the moon. And it's like, no, you set yourself up for failure. And it's almost like the same thing we see in like games where people have these blown out budgets for this revived IP, and it's like, what I just don't get at what point too, because the people that make these decisions in both video games and movies are getting paid so much money, and we're just sitting here, this isn't even our job, and I could have told you that from the get-go.
Yeah, so that is the money for this thing, I just think, because if the more you spend on it, I mean, no one knew I think it was going to flop this bad, but it's like, do you know how much less that would have hurt if this movie cost $50 million? A lot less. A lot less.
If you're ready to transition to your next point, if you're ready to talk about cast, if that's where the budget went...
cast, yeah, we were getting cast, yeah.
I would say if that's where a bulk of the budget was spent, I feel like I haven't seen the movie, but even so, none of those people really seem like they really fit the movie. The only person... I don't know who Tiny Tina's like character is, but would be if you're writing
the person playing her.
Yeah, if you're writing Jack Black's claptrap voice off of Bowser from Mario, sure, that might have been.
I would say the trailer, he looked like the best part.
Yeah, so that might have been okay, the little bit of here, but I don't think like Jamie Lee or Kate Blanchett or Kevin Hart, any of those other people that were probably paid a crazy amount of money who's gonna draw that? Why are they the draw for this?
Yeah, especially, I don't want to say a boy type game or anything like that, but yeah, when two of your main lead females are both playing much older versions of the characters that they're supposed to be, it was bad casting. Ariana Greenblatt plays Tiny Tina, and I know her because I just saw her in Monsters in Love, that movie I was talking about a few months back, and I believe she played the young Ahsoka in Ahsoka's flashback. So she's an up-and-comer type girl. But yeah, the cast, again, when we were watching this trailer too, we're like, because Kate Blanchett is top tier actress. She's one of the best ever, but she's not Lilith. She shouldn't be playing the 21-year-old siren. Jamie Lee Curtis, Oscar winner. It's like, but this movie I don't think fits it. Kevin Hart, I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, to each their own. But I mean, if you're gonna be playing Roland, I don't know. It just seemed like the only thing that seemed like it fit was the non-scene Jack Black as Claptrap. So I think, and then this kind of leads into the fourth point of going, there was just too many writers and changes. It seemed like at this point there were 7 changes of writers to this movie, so it seemed like nobody knew how to pinpoint what Borderlands even was. And then, like I said earlier, it's not that hard to get, but you guys focused way too much on the characters, and from what I'm hearing is shoehorning a lot of different games, story beats into this one. And it feels like if this was supposed to be a franchise, let's call it 2 or 3 movies, it's like you did way too much from what I'm hearing of putting everything into one box, and then at the end of that day it making no sense, because it's like most people don't know the Borderlands stuff anyway, so you don't overcrowd something that doesn't need to be overcrowded.
I'll say, to me, I felt like too, it almost seems like they did trying to force almost like a Jumanji situation, you know, with Kevin Hart, like this, let's take this thing and make it like even wackier, more zany, but now we have, again, with another Kevin Hart-centric thing like that, so maybe like trying to write off of that, and it's like, I don't know that anyone loved those movies for him, and now you're putting him in like a similar situation.
Yeah, and the other big thing too is that, I mean, you could say the game's bloody and gory, but I think you can get a lot done with PG-13. But what they were missing was kind of the dark undertone in the writing. Instead of trying to make it more, witty, zany comedy, it's like, no, you're missing that a lot of these guys are on a wasteland who with slave type, cronies and people that are insane doing all types of nutty shit. It's like, it's not a comedy. I mean, it is, by
dark comedy,
black comedy,
comedy.
And I feel like that's a lot of what they miss. So that's kind of the 4 points I wanted to point out, and then kind of read this last little bit of what Screen Rant had to say that I think focuses on this too. It says, a big reason why Borderlands has done so poorly is that it lost the integrity of the original games. Borderlands made so many changes that it no longer feels synonymous with the video game. Once again, the main perpetrator is the story. Rather than following the plot of the first Borderlands game from 2009, the movie includes a strange mix of different plots from different games. This is especially obvious when looking at the movie's characters, where some of the original Borderlands characters were cut. Other characters who weren't in the first game were brought in, i.e. Tiny Tina. Beyond that, Borderlands simply wasn't able to capture the magic of the video games. One of the best parts of the Borderlands video games is the franchise's dark comedy, like Andrew said. Unfortunately, many reviewers found the film's humor to be cliche and overdone. It also didn't help that the movie's cast were so different from their characters. Lilith is 22 in the Borderlands games, yet Kate Blanchett is 55. The same goes for Tannis, who is in her 30s in the games, but is played by 63-year-old Jamie Lee Curtis. These changes may seem small, but affect the movie considerably. So yeah, I mean, really, movies do this all the time. Recast, rechange, whatever fits the story. But when the story isn't being told properly or accurately or remotely close to begin with, then these changes are made for change's sake. And I don't think casting 2 senior citizens in the role of what I would consider a crazy, zany type game, I don't think that did it any favors. Not that it couldn't have worked, but clearly it did not.
I just don't understand too, because it's another thing that suffers from just like the last. Even though I liked Welcome to Raccoon City, suffered from the same thing. Let's combine events of like 1, 2, and some of 3 all into one. It's like, if you're setting up for a franchise, then why are we putting 10 stories into one movie?
Yeah, especially 10 stories that most people don't know.
So yeah, it's like, let's just go with the one, see how it goes, and then go from there. And even still, you're taking things that are beloved, like Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, all stand on their own, and people love them individually, so people would stand to go see a 1, 2, and 3 movie. Same with Borderlands. I'm sure you could mix and match maybe some characters. I'm sure Tina showing up earlier than she would have isn't that detrimental to something, but still, you keep 1, set yourself up for 2, finish 3. It's not a fucking hard concept.
It doesn't make any sense. So, not really much more to say. We haven't seen the movie, but just going off of what's been said.
I'll wait for it to come to something.
Yeah,
I'm not.
And who do you think's picking it up? Lionsgate is probably what? Probably like an HBO thing, or Netflix is going to buy it. So, and I don't even know who wants it. So, hey, from the guys that made the worst movie all year, come check it out on Netflix. So,
do you think it's going to become because last I sent you that thing that it is, they were worried it's going to be the biggest box office bomb of all time?
I think it's going to be hard to see how it won't, because you have to look at those numbers, because, the only thing making it that is that the low amount of money it made in the box office versus because of how high the budget is, and then the marketing, and again, it's like that it wouldn't have been if that budget was $50 million, but the fact that it's $115 plus $30 million marketing, $8 million to its $150, I don't see it making more. This thing will be lucky if it gets to $30 million. So yeah, I mean, I'd have to see.
That's generous. I was gonna say 20.
I'd have to see what the next one would be, but this thing it's definitely gonna be the top 3.
Maybe it'll be a cult classic on DVD.
I get a weird feeling it's because, like I said, from what I'm hearing, I saw the worst movie out there. It's you get lost in whatever it's trying to tell. I hope maybe when I do watch it on something that I'm going to be like, you know what, there was something there, and why didn't they do more of this, less of that, more of that? But I won't know in the next 2 weeks. So I'm not seeing this thing in theater.
I don't know. As far as I've seen, again, and I don't.
You write it off?
I don't go so much off of reviews. Like I just kind of try to gauge where I think maybe it is or set an expectation. But I also look more for people like us who go and see movies and maybe love it more than what people wrote. When both people unanimously hate it, I'm out. I'll wait for it to come to something before I watch it.
I'll wait for the VHS tape made for it to come out.
I'm not going to go sit in theaters and waste my time when Alien is on the horizon.
Alien is definitely on the horizon. So guys, let us know your thoughts on the Borderlands floppy movie, the floppy poppy.
If you saw it, let us know what you think.
Definitely. So with that out of the way, guys, let's move into our second story, and that is that Call of Duty Black Ops 6 had some pretty big leaks, and this is kind of more of an announcement that I'm going to read, and then if we want to point out a couple things, I know you said you wrote a couple things down for it, so let's get into it. This is from InsiderGaming.com, and again, the link will be in the description if you guys want to read more of it. And it says, let's see, make sure I got the right thing here. Okay. According to our estimates, hundreds of people have already gained access to Black Ops 6 via jailbroken PlayStation 4 consoles. Some users have resorted to uploading the content online, with Activision beginning to DMCA the content and issue cease and desist to the most prolific offenders. Let's see, I thought I had something else, but not. Okay. The campaign leak marks another huge blow for the developers behind Black Ops 6. So far, the entire beta build, the game's achievements, and now the entirety of the campaign's cutscenes. That really does suck. Black Ops 6 Zombies are seemingly the only game mode that is yet to be compromised, but with data miners continuing to extract and find data, it could be only a matter of time before the game mode is also leaked. Speaking with several Black Ops 6 developers, they are understandably upset and frustrated over the large amount of leaks with an unprecedented amount of Call of Duty. One developer told me about the situation. It really sucks to see our big reveal ruined like this. We were all excited to show it off in a big and special way. Black Ops 6 multiplayer is set to be officially revealed at the end of August in a COD Next event, which will be prior to the Black Ops 6 beta. So, yeah, it's really unfortunate that a lot of that has leaked and came out. I mean, we are living that age where just more of this stuff kind of seems to be happening more often than not. But it's also, I mean, there's one thing if there's people that are doing it. Yeah, I mean, you've got to go out of your way to click the content. If you're not clicking the link, I mean, I don't know anything about it. Do you know anything about it? Did you click any of the things that said, hey, do you want to read the whole story for Call of Duty? Click here. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, or kind of point out, is that, I mean, I'm not saying it's right at all, but it's like, if the whole story, the whole campaign is leaked, it's like, the majority of players that play Call of Duty do not normally play the campaign to begin with. It's like less than half. I was looking at, and this is only from PSN, so this is only from PlayStation, only if you're registered. Like, on Modern Warfare Remaster, Modern Warfare 2 Remaster, 50% of the people that started playing the game beat the campaign. On the Modern Warfare, the remake of it, less than 30% of people that played the game beat the storyline. So I'm not saying that it's still fair, but it's like, I don't think the majority of players that play COD are usually, I mean, we do. I love the campaigns, but you gotta remember, this is also a series that has games with no campaign. So I think the achievements is kind of more the thing that gives more away of the game than the campaign, because at least with that you can kind of see what's going to be required of you in game. But I don't know, it still sucks. But for me, I was just like, either you're going to click on it and see it and ruin it for yourself, or the majority of players that play the biggest franchise in the world really don't even play the campaign to begin with. But what were your thoughts?
I was like, that sucks that it leaked, but I mean, I a special note here because it's kind of almost their own fault for not really paying attention. But I personally play the campaign. I'm not going to go watch those cutscenes. I enjoy it, so I don't think that campaign leaking is like too The only way it would be detrimental is now, like, anytime I go to look at any sort of YouTube comment, so I could put in there and be like, Woods dies or something, you know, something from the story or whatever. That's the only thing that's really going to hurt me. Nothing's going to, you know, I doubt anyone's going to blast this all over the place. But, I mean, what more sucks too is, their beta plans leaked, a lot of their multiplayer stuff leaked, and it even stepped more into, like, Warzone too. There's been a bunch of Warzone leaks all coming from this. And the reason they were able to get this, like they mentioned, is from an old PS4 build. But what I don't think that article said is that now the way Call of Duty works, and you've asked me about this before, is before you used to have Call of Duty you launch them all individually. Now they have them doing that stupid fucking COD HQ, where you pick which Call of Duty it is you want to play and which one you have installed. And they had this on the COD HQ, and they had the old build and everything in the back end. So people were able to get in through that COD HQ and get all the information from there.
The old backdoor,
so that's how they did it. If it wasn't that COD HQ, and I wonder if this is going to make them opt out of that in the future, or maybe just make them pay more attention or do something, because there is other people doing stuff like that now too. Like, you probably would have to watch out now for your Ubisoft, because that's Ubisoft's plan going forward, is like an Assassin's Creed hub as well too. So I thought that was the crazier thing, is it wasn't just a jailbroken PS4, maybe someone who got a hold of something.
Which is so weird to think of it. They jailbroke PS4s to do this.
But they just had they said it was an old build of the game, front to back. So it was the entire game. So who knows what's been changed between now and then. Who knows how old that build was. But again, just something that I don't even understand how that's found on the back end of that.
I don't even know that's possible.
You know, that stuff is beyond me. But again, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it was kind of more an announcement just to get into it. I don't know how much more there is to say about it. I mean, again, it's not a drastic thing. It's not a campaign where if I found out someone dies, I'm like, oh, okay. It's not like finding out in God of War or something, or it's not like finding out in. But again, though, it is weird that, and it does sound like more like it's their fault for leaving something like that open, which I guess. Which is a very stupid thing to do.
To hype them up a little bit, I guess they always do close and open betas are going to be August 3rd to September 9th, if you're looking forward to that.
Ooh.
Come play online with me.
So, guys, that is the end of our main stories. We're going to go into questions of the week. Guys, if you have a question you want us to answer on the show, you can do so a couple different ways. You can leave a comment down below in the YouTube section. You guys can email us at lastcallproductions@gmail.com, or you can find me on social media at Craig Perales, and we can take it there. And we just have the one question this week, and it comes from Jacob T, and he writes, did you hear Santa Monica is making a new game? Do you think it will be like God of War or something very different? Thanks. So this article is from The Gamer, and just to kind of put it in context so you know what's going on with it, and then we can dive into it. It says, this reference to a new IP is found on LinkedIn profile, with the relevant section reading as follows. Santa Monica Studios presented the opportunity of coming back as character supervisor, looking after the entire character development pipeline on their new IP. So here I am, thrilled to be back, working again with the crew and pushing characters in video games together. It's been rumored for many years now that Santa Monica Studios creative director Cory Barlog is working on a new space-themed IP. We first covered this all the way back in 2019, but nothing has yet come of it. Just to get us speculating some more, Barlog's current banner photo on his Twitter is a parody of a panel from The Watchmen, which depicts himself in space. Now with this reference to a new IP on LinkedIn, it's looking more likely that something unrelated to God of War is happening. So whether or not it's going to be a sci-fi or science-y type game, you know, who knows. But it is kind of weird to think that Santa Monica, well, one of two things. It's weird that Santa Monica, I guess, is finally doing something different, and then it's also weird to think that they've never really done something different. So when I was looking them up, Santa Monica started when they first did their first game in 2001. They did Kinetica, which was on 2002, or which was on PlayStation 2. But nobody remembers Kinetica. It was. Do you remember that? It was an old game where you were these guys that could like turn themselves into bikes, and you could like it was like a fast racing game. But then, so in 2005, they did God of War. So from 2005 to 2022, they did God of War 1, 2, 3, Ascension, then the reboot of God of War, and then Ragnarok. So it's kind of cool that they're one of the few studios, because even though they're only focusing on this one IP, it's been one of the best IPs on that platform. Every platform. God of War is one of the best-selling games on PS2, is one of the best-selling games on PS3, best on PS4, and now with Ragnarok on PS5 and the PS4, it did extremely well. But you also, I mean, if you're working at one of these companies, you want your resume to be more than just one game, right? I mean, one of the concepts of trying to build your portfolio up so you can kind of shop it around is going, oh, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And when you're stuck to just God of War, I'm not saying that's bad if that's what you like to do it. I can see it being repetitive. I can see it not maybe using the most of your creative skills in a very heavy creative environment. So before I point out a couple other things, what do you think about Santa Monica doing just God of War? Do you think it's going to be a science fiction game? Do you have any ideas or what you think they would be? Because the other thing you got to remember is PlayStation-owned games is generally third-person action, action adventure. Code of Paint. Is it going to be Uncharted? It's Indiana Jones. Is it going to be God of War? Greek mythology. Is it going to be The Last of Us? Zombie Apocalypse. They're all kind of the same. So I would hope it wouldn't just be the same thing. New Code of Paint here, but I don't know.
I have no clue what they're going to do, and I mean, that's kind of the exciting thing. I can't speak to whether it would be... I don't even know what kind of futuristic game they would even make. Who knows? Maybe they would turn around and make, like, a shooter now that, like, Killzone or something like that's not out there. Maybe they could do something like that, right? As far as maybe something would be out there that I wouldn't want to happen, but maybe it would be kind of cool, and I would maybe buy a PlayStation for it, especially since Sony is getting, not the IP, but exclusively... for the time being, Silent Hill 2, is if somehow they made another Konami deal and had God of War turn around, or Sony Santa Monica turn around and do just restart Castlevania from the ground up. Ooh. That would be, not that I would want that to be locked behind something, and I would prefer them to do something new, but just something that I think would be really cool personally. But that's personally because I would love to see Castlevania come back.
So you would rather get behind a... well, because I think they said it is going to be a new IP. So, but in the future, it'd be nice for them to... I mean,
I'm just throwing something else out there because it's so hard to speculate on something new. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I did want to kind of point this out just so you guys can kind of see some evolution of what past studios have done that are just different. So, like, if you look at something like Naughty Dog... Naughty Dog started off doing Crash Bandicoot games, right? Excellent games. And you got to remember, back in the day when you were putting these games together, back in like the 90s and early 2000s, it was a lot easier to make trilogies of games and then go on and make a new franchise of something because games were smaller, the hardware, wasn't as big. Now when you start making these games, instead of knocking games out year after year after year, like a lot of these ones, like if you look at like Crash Bandicoot, 3 to 5
years now.
Yeah, 1996. Crash Bandicoot 2, 1997. Crash Bandicoot Warp, 1998. Game every year. Now you're getting 3 years in between games. So you do want to work on more as fast as you can because that window of working on more is getting smaller and smaller because the work frame gets bigger and bigger. So yeah, so I just want to point out just so you can kind of see. They did Crash Bandicoot. Then they went on to do Jak and Daxter. Then they went on to do Uncharted. Which was right, and then they went on to do The Last of Us. So those are all four different games. Although I would say Uncharted and Last of Us are third-person action shooters, new Code of Paint. But Naughty Dog. Then Insomniac is probably the more interesting one. Started off doing Spyro the Dragon and just banging them out. 1998, Spyro 2, 99, Spyro Year of the Dragon, 2000. Then they did Ratchet and Clank. A lot of people forget they did Resistance, which was a pretty good shooter game, like on the PS3 and stuff when it came out. And I'd probably say that's when things started changing from the year after year releases.
I know people are still wanting Resistance back.
And so I think PlayStation 3, 2005, 2006 is when that started changing. Is when you started seeing those gaps get a little bit bigger. So then they did Sunset Overdrive, and then they started doing Spider-Man. A lot of people keep going like, oh, all they make is Spider-Man games. And it's like, no, you got to remember all the stuff they did before. Spider-Man was in 2018. 2020 they did Spider-Man Miles Morales, and then people forget that 2021 they did Ratchet and Clank Ripped Apart. Insomniac is that weird anomaly where like they still have this uncanny ability to make games within 1 to 2 years of themselves. And now then they did Spider-Man 2, and then they have Marvel's Wolverine coming out. And the last one that I think is probably one of the bigger ones is Sucker Punch. Started off making Sly Cooper, which probably was the least popular of the mascot games if you're looking at
I love Sly Cooper.
But compared to Ratchet and Clank and Jack and Daxter, probably on the bottom. Then it made Infamous, and then it made Ghost of Tsushima. Very different games, all three in itself. So to kind of guess what Santa Monica could do when you look at these other three big studios that can make all these wildly different games, I hope it is something drastically different. Like for me, playing Infamous and then playing Ghost of Tsushima from the same studio is like, whoa. And it's kind of what I want to see with Playground Games, going from Horizon to them making Fable. Like, it is nice to see them pivot. So, I don't know, maybe a sci-fi, maybe they bring back Kinetica and they make it a sci-fi racing game or something like that. That'd be kind of interesting.
Do you think they have to make something besides an action game? Even if it came out and it was 10 out of 10, the next Last of Us, it's that good, winning all the awards, are people going to talk shit and just be like, well, yeah, it's just another like God of War, though? I
don't know, man, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. When your first-party studios are making the best versions of that category, then that's where you're at. And so it would suck to pigeonhole them to the same thing, but it's because we've seen when other studios try to pivot and do something they're not used to, and it crashes and burns. You wouldn't want to see their next game to be something that's drastically different and be like, wow, you guys really suck at doing that. Because then the conversation's going to be, go back to making third-person action-adventure games. So, yeah, I don't know. If they're leaning towards a sci-fi type game, I think it's interesting if they went back to a racer, because that's where they cut their teeth on, was that Kinetica game. And I didn't know that that Kinetica game was the engine that they actually used for a lot of different games. So like they built that engine, and that engine was used for SOCOM, Navy SEALs, and God of War 1 and 2. Actually, and again, you said a shooter, but that might be kind of cool too, because if that engine could use something like that, dude, bring back SOCOM, sci-fi SOCOM. How sick would that be?
There's nothing like SOCOM out there.
So yeah, I just kind of had it right. It's kind of hard to guess what maybe they could do, but I think it's kind of nice to see what other studios have done, and I would like it to be something different. But again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think it's nice that Santa Monica Studios is doing something different after 20 years of doing the same thing. But doing the same thing well.
Yeah, it's like same thing of winning awards. Yeah.
20
years of winning awards.
I hate that. So, guys, that is the end of the episode that we have for you guys. That is the end of episode 201. Guys, join us for the next episode, 202. And until next time, guys, my name is Craig Perales. This is Mandrew Montsman. Until then, cheers.